From the balanced scorecard, for each goal within the balanced scorecard, there may be projects. Those are the strategic initiatives that organizations engage in order to accomplish the goals within the balanced scorecard. For example, if I have a goal of improving my customer service scores from a 4.2 to a 4.3 during fiscal year 2009, we might have some specific initiatives that we engage in order to do that. At that level, those are the activities that we do. And the reason I spend time on this is because this is really key. This is the first area where action is taken to implement the strategy, is in those key initiatives. From those initiatives, the balanced scorecard is cascaded down to the individuals, and people have their personal goals, which is, what do I need to do when I show up to work in order to achieve, in order to help the organization move closer to achieving its mission and vision. So once we've decided on all of that, what we should end up with are some specific outcomes. The outcomes really mirror the 4 different perspectives of the balanced scorecard. We should end up with satisfied shareholders because we're achieving our financial objectives, with delighted customers because we're achieving our customer objectives, effective processes because we're achieving our process objectives, and a prepared and motivated workforce because we're achieving our learning and innovation goals within the balanced scorecard, or objectives. Is that how it works at your company? Like I said, this is not exactly how it works at every organization. Some organizations do this and some don't. I also want to make an important point. There's very successful organizations that don't do all of this, that don't have a balanced scorecard approach, that maybe they have a mission. I mean, it's critical really to have a mission so that everyone's aligned towards the same outcomes, so to speak. They usually have goals. In order to be successful, you have to have targets. And those would be goals not necessarily in the balanced scorecard format, but they have goals. And they often cascade goals throughout the organization, but maybe not in this format. But they're still successful. Some organizations are successful in spite of themselves because they're in the right market with the right product at the right time. I call it dumb luck, but I'll take it. I mean, if it's going to lead to success, that's great. What happens is in an economic downturn, what we're seeing is that they're not paying attention to their people. So their people aren't evolving the processes to provide better customer service. And then, therefore, they're not achieving their financial goals. In fact, with this next slide, we could see it a little bit better that each of these columns is a perspective of the balanced scorecard. And with HR, or talent management, what we want to do is tie ourselves to the specific strategic initiatives, those projects that are taking place to help drive the goals within the balanced scorecard. Now, this is really where we're kind of segueing into how do we create value? Because we create value by driving the people processes associated with each of the perspectives of the balanced scorecard. So we attach ourselves to these initiatives, or the subcategory of initiatives, and we enable them to be successful through the people that are part of those initiatives. The way that this usually all wraps up, and
can I interrupt you there?
Yeah, absolutely, anytime.
I actually think that we're much more than just an enabler at the process stage, and this is where I agree with that very much. But the problem is, I think we need to be involved much earlier.
Oh yeah.
And even in the strategy setting stage, where HR is often, you talked about the executive team setting the strategy. Oftentimes HR is left out of that process, but we as HR individuals, our company doesn't use the balanced scorecard, but when we had our strategy planning session, I actually volunteered and pushed to lead and facilitate that discussion, because I firmly believe that's where HR belongs, as the driver of these strategic measures.
Yeah.
And so not only at the process stage, but I think, which I agree with, I think we need to be involved in the strategy setting stage even more so, and that's where we can immediately add value from the very beginning and help cascade even further there.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's something, in thinking back over what I said, that's something that I omitted, is that if we go back to this slide here, the executive team doesn't just consist of the senior-most person in each of the functions. One of the key functions of the organization is the talent management function, whether that be the chief learning officer, the CLO, or the senior vice president of HR, or a senior OD level person that's part of that executive team. They have to either be a participant in this or driving that process, either on equal footing or facilitating the process and able to contribute while they facilitate. One of the key competencies that we have in talent management is that we're used to facilitating things. That's part of our competence in our role. And so we have processes to facilitate this whole thing. And so to your point, which was an excellent point, we're driving this whole process. Most organizations don't have a senior vice president of marketing that will drive this process, or a senior vice president of operations that will drive this process, or in any other function that will even know of or drive this process. We're really the subject matter experts where this is concerned. And part of the competence of a senior level HR or training or talent management professional is that they can drive this process.
Just a quick comment. We're a fairly young organization, probably been in business for about 4 or 5 years, going on 5 years, and we're actually driving this process right now. We don't have a mission statement in place, we don't have core values in place, but we're starting to build our culture and our vision, and we actually gathered, the HR team, the executive group, to actually literally be in their face saying, we've got to do these things and put these strategies in place in regards to the mission and the core values. And they've actually been open to volunteering their ideas, their strategic tactics, because they've been so involved in organizational development that they've left this out. They've literally forgotten about it, so now they're welcoming it. So we're at the beginning stages of that.
Why? Why are they welcoming it now?
Because they feel that they need it now, because we've grown so rapidly. We started with 12 employees, we're up to 200 plus.
So that rapid growth, what's occurred during that rapid growth that has driven their perceived needs?
It's created the need for employees to have some type of direction. People are really needing that.
So I guess what I'm really getting at here is that me going to the president of Learn.com and saying, we need to do that, is completely and wholly insufficient. Unless I can make a business case as to why, what would be the value to Learn.com in doing this, what would be our ROE, which is return on expectations. You can't track ROI except after something's happened. So what would be our expected return from doing this? And how will that drive Learn.com's success moving forward? Unless I can communicate that, they're not going to buy into it. Especially if they've been successful growing from 12 employees to 200 employees without any of this.
Right. And we act, but see, some of the top level executives feel that they don't need it, but that it is important. So they're learning to understand, and we actually have to teach them, listen, these are the specific reasons as to why. So we don't have this per se chart in place right now, but it's something that we're actually working on doing.
People do things either to avoid pain or to work towards a desired consequence. So a lot of times organizations don't change until they're experiencing pain. Rapid growth, while highly desired, is also highly painful, right? Yeah. So as you grow rapidly, these things often get left by the wayside because you're so busy focusing on the tactical side of your business that you forget about the strategy side of your business. What ends up happening is that you end up doing the same thing over and over again, and you know that if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're actually moving backwards. Because the rest of the world isn't. The rest of the world is moving forwards, not just marching in place. So these are some great points. Thank you for bringing those up. So what I also wanted to point out really quickly is this is another slide from the book, The Strategy Focused Organization.